The emergency lights cast crimson shadows across the curved walls of Research Station Helios as Captain Thalia Novik ran her fingers over the cold steel of her pulse rifle. 20 years of military service hadn't prepared her for the eerie silence of a dying station. The familiar hum of life support systems had faded to a whisper, leaving only the sound of her measured breathing and the soft click of magnetic boots against metal flooring. "Status report," she subvocalized into her neural comm, trying to ignore the growing knot in her stomach. This was supposed to be a routine inspection of an automated research facility. Nothing in the briefing had mentioned the complete communication blackout or the strange energy signatures that her suit's sensors were struggling to interpret. Static crackled in response. Her team of 4, spread throughout the station's various sectors, had gone dark 10 minutes ago. Standard protocol dictated an immediate retreat, but Thalia had never been one to abandon her people. Not after what happened on Europa. A flash of movement caught her eye, a ripple in the shadows that shouldn't exist in the station's artificial gravity. She pivoted, weapon raised, only to find herself face to face with something that defied her years of xenobiological training. The being before her stood nearly 7 feet tall, its form wrapped in what appeared to be living crystal that shifted between deep purple and midnight blue. Where a human would have eyes, it possessed spiral patterns of bioluminescent light that pulsed with intelligent purpose. Most striking were the geometric patterns etched into its crystalline surface, not decorative, but clearly a form of written language that seemed to shift and change as she watched. "Fascinating," the creature spoke, its voice resonating directly in her mind. "You didn't flee, the others of your kind always flee." Thalia kept her weapon steady but didn't fire. "I'm not in the habit of running from conversations. I am Captain Thalia Novik of the Earth Alliance Security Force. This station is under our protection." The being's crystalline surface rippled with what might have been amusement. "I am Railkin, keeper of histories for the Nexus Collective. And you, Captain Thalia Novik, are standing in what remains of my people's last attempt to prevent a catastrophe that will consume both our civilizations." Before Thalia could respond, a violent tremor shook the station. Emergency sirens blared to life, their wailing cutting through the previous silence. The station's AI sparked to life, its voice distorted. "Warning, containment breach in Sector 7. Quantum collapse imminent. All personnel evacuate immediately." Railkin's crystalline form pulsed with urgent patterns. "We have no time. Your team is safe. I placed them in stasis when they approached the temporal anomaly. But if we don't act now, everything within 50 light-years will be drawn into the void." 2 decades of military training screamed at Thalia to follow protocol, to treat this unknown entity as a potential threat. But something in the geometric patterns of Railkin's writing-covered form spoke of ancient wisdom and desperate truth. She lowered her weapon. "Tell me what you need." The alien's response came with a surge of mental images, blueprints, equations, and concepts that stretched the boundaries of human physics. "We must reach the quantum core. My people built this station millennia ago to study the space between spaces. We discovered something hungry, something that has been waiting since the first stars died. The containment fields are failing." Together, they raced through the station's twisting corridors, their unlikely alliance born of necessity. Railkin's crystalline form illuminated their path, while Thalia's military-grade access codes opened sealed bulkheads. The station's architecture began to warp around them, space itself protesting against some unseen pressure. They found the quantum core pulsing with impossible colors, its surface crawling with fractal patterns that hurt to look at. Railkin moved with practiced precision, their crystalline hands dancing across ancient controls while feeding instructions directly into Thalia's mind. "The equations must be balanced," Railkin explained, their mental voice strained. "My people spent generations building this facility, learning to hold back the darkness between dimensions, but we never found a way to seal the breach permanently." Thalia's military neural implants struggled to process the complex mathematics Railkin was sharing. "Why show me this? Why trust me?" The alien's response carried undertones of both hope and resignation. "Because, Captain, in all our simulations of possible futures, it was the unexpected alliance between our peoples that offered the only path to survival. We are proud, ancient, and set in our ways. You humans are young, adaptable, and possessing of a unique perspective we lost eons ago." Another violent tremor rocked the station. Warning lights flashed as multiple systems began to fail simultaneously. Railkin's crystalline form flickered, their patterns becoming erratic. "The containment field requires both of us," they explained quickly. My people's quantum mathematics and your species' unique electromagnetic neural patterns. Together, we might buy enough time to evacuate this sector of space before the breach widens. Thalia didn't hesitate. Tell me what to do. What followed was unlike anything in her extensive military career. As Railkin guided her through the complex procedure, Thalia felt her consciousness expanding, touching something vast and ancient. Her neural implants burned as they processed calculations that should have been impossible, while Railkin's crystalline form resonated at frequencies that made reality itself shiver. The quantum core's chaotic patterns slowly stabilized, but Thalia could feel through their connected consciousness that this was only the beginning. They had bought time, nothing more. Your team will awaken soon, Railkin communicated as they completed the temporary containment procedure. But this is not the end, Captain Thalia Novik. What we've discovered here, what threatens to break through, it's only the first wave. There are forces gathering in the spaces between stars that would consume everything we know. Thalia nodded, already knowing what came next. Then we'll face them together. My superiors won't like it, and I'm guessing your collective will have their own objections. Railkin's surface rippled with what she now recognized as grim amusement. Indeed, my people have not worked directly with younger races in 10,000 years, but perhaps that is precisely why we find ourselves in this situation. As they made their way to retrieve her team, Thalia felt the weight of what they'd discovered settling onto her shoulders. This wasn't just about saving a research station anymore. Something fundamental had shifted in the universe's careful balance, and she had somehow found herself at the center of it all, standing beside a being of living crystal who had just defied eons of tradition to work with her. Why me? She finally asked as they approached the stasis field holding her team. Railkin's response came with a complexity of emotion that her human mind struggled to fully grasp. Because when faced with the unknown, you did not run, you did not shoot, you asked for understanding. In all our years of watching humanity, such responses have been rare. We will need more of that wisdom in the days to come. As Thalia worked to revive her team, she knew that nothing would ever be the same. The universe had just become impossibly larger, more dangerous, and more wonderful than she had ever imagined. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, ancient forces were stirring, unaware that their awakening had forged an alliance that would change the course of two civilizations forever. The command center of the Earth Alliance vessel Starweaver hummed with tension as Captain Thalia Novik faced down the holographic projections of her superior officers. 3 weeks had passed since the incident at Research Station Helios, and the bureaucratic fallout was reaching critical mass. You expect us to believe, Admiral Harrison's projection flickered with barely contained fury, that an advanced alien species has been monitoring humanity from hidden research stations, and now they want to collaborate because of some interdimensional threat. Beside Thalia, Railkin's crystalline form pulsed with subtle patterns that she'd learned to recognize as patience. The alien's presence had caused quite a stir among the crew, but they'd gradually adjusted to seeing the towering figure of living crystal walking their corridors. With respect, Admiral, Thalia maintained her composure, the evidence is irrefutable. The quantum readings from Helios Station are classified, another Admiral cut in. Along with everything else about this situation, you're hereby ordered to return to Earth for debriefing. Your guest will be taken into protective custody for further study. Thalia felt Railkin's consciousness brush against her mind, a warning. In the past weeks, their ability to communicate telepathically had strengthened, becoming almost second nature. The aliens' thoughts carried images of similar scenarios throughout history, all ending in disaster. That won't be possible, Thalia stated firmly. We're tracking an anomaly in the Perseus arm that matches the signature from Helios. We don't have time for bureaucratic. The transmission cut off abruptly. Emergency lights flashed as the ship's AI announced. Warning, unusual gravitational disturbance detected, all hands brace for impact. Reality twisted. Through the bridge's viewport, space itself seemed to fold, colors bleeding into impossible shapes. Thalia's neural implants screamed with data overload as Railkin's crystalline form blazed with urgent patterns. They're here, the alien's mental voice resonated with ancient dread. The Void Hunters, they sense our knowledge of them. The ship shuddered as something massive emerged from the distortion. It defied conventional physics, a construct of darkness and bent light that hurt to look at directly. Tendrils of pure darkness reached out toward the Starweaver, each touch causing systems to fail and metal to age centuries in seconds. All hands battle stations, Thalia commanded, falling back on years of training. Redirect power to the quantum shields. She turned to Railkin. Please tell me you have experience with these things. The alien's response came with a burst of tactical data. My people fought them eons ago, drove them back into the spaces between dimensions. But we lost much in that war, including the knowledge of how to defeat them permanently. The bridge crew worked frantically as more of the entities emerged. Lieutenant Patel at Weapons tried conventional armaments, but photon torpedoes passed straight through the creatures. Ensign Rodriguez reported multiple hull breaches as the darkness began eating through the ship's outer layers. The shields won't hold, Thalia announced grimly. We need options. Railkin's surface rippled with complex equations. There might be a way. Your neural implants, they operate on principles similar to my people's quantum mathematics, if we combine them with the ship's power core. Do it, Thalia didn't hesitate. She'd learned to trust these moments of inspiration from her alien ally. What followed was a desperate race against time. As the crew evacuated compromised sections of the ship, Thalia and Railkin worked to modify the Starweaver's power distribution system. The alien's crystalline hands moved with impossible precision, rerouting quantum circuits while feeding instructions directly into Thalia's mind. This will be dangerous, Railkin warned as they made the final connections. What we're attempting, it's never been done. The merger of your neural technology with my people's quantum mathematics could destroy your mind. Thalia managed a grim smile. Better than letting those things destroy everything else. She could feel the darkness seeping through the ship's defenses, taste the ancient hunger that drove the entities. Whatever happens, it's been an honor working with you, Railkin. The alien's response carried unexpected warmth. The honor has been mine, Captain Thalia Novik. You've shown me that my people's isolation was perhaps our greatest mistake. They initiated the sequence. Pain exploded behind Thalia's eyes as her neural implants connected with the ship's modified systems. Railkin's consciousness enveloped her own, their combined awareness expanding to encompass the ship and the space around it. Through their merged perception, the Void Hunters became comprehensible, ancient, patient things that had waited in the darkness between realities since the universe was young. What they created wasn't exactly a weapon. It was more like a song, a harmony of human neural patterns and alien quantum mathematics that rippled through space itself. Where it touched the dark entities, they recoiled, their impossible geometries struggling to maintain coherence in the face of this new phenomenon. The Starweaver's remaining power systems channeled energy into their improvised defense. Through their shared consciousness, Thalia felt Railkin's surprise and excitement. This was new not just to them, but to the universe itself. The combination of their different technologies, different ways of thinking, had created something unprecedented. The Void Hunters retreated, their darkness folding in on itself until they vanished back into whatever space they had emerged from. As the immediate danger passed, Thalia felt her consciousness separating from Railkin's, but something had changed. A connection remained faint but unmistakable. What did we just do? She asked, both aloud and through their mental link. Railkin's crystalline surface danced with complex patterns. We may have discovered why the simulations showed our peoples working together. Your neural technology, combined with our quantum mathematics, it creates something the Void Hunters cannot comprehend, cannot consume. Emergency teams were already moving through the ship, assessing damage and treating injuries. But Thalia knew this was just the beginning. They'll be back. Yes, Railkin agreed. And they will not be alone. What we did here, it will draw attention. From my people, from your authorities, and from things that dwell in darker spaces than even the Void Hunters. Thalia nodded, already formulating plans. Then we better make sure we're ready. Lieutenant Patel set course for the Perseus arm. Whatever's causing these incursions will find it. She turned to Railkin. I don't suppose you know any other rogue members of your species who might be willing to help. The alien's response carried a mix of amusement and hope. There are always those who question tradition. Perhaps it's time they met some humans who do the same. As the Starweaver limped through space, its hull bearing the scars of their encounter, Thalia felt the weight of what they'd discovered. This wasn't just about survival anymore. They'd stumbled onto something that could change both their civilizations, assuming they lived long enough to see it through. The Perseus arm waited ahead, its stars seeming to pulse with new meaning. Somewhere in that spiral of light and darkness, answers waited. And perhaps, Thalia reflected, watching Railkin work with her crew to repair the ship's quantum systems, that was exactly what both their peoples needed, a mystery big enough to force them to grow beyond their limitations. The ancient archive of the Nexus Collective stretched endlessly in all directions, its crystalline architecture defying human concepts of space and geometry. Captain Thalia Novik stood beside Railkin, her neural implants struggling to process the impossible dimensions of the alien library. "Your people built all this," she whispered, watching as streams of living light carried information through transparent conduits. After 2 months of tracking anomalies across the Perseus arm, they'd finally found one of the collective's hidden strongholds. Railkin's surface rippled with complex emotions. "Built, grew, dreamed into existence, our language has many words for creation that don't translate well. This archive holds the accumulated knowledge of 100,000 years." They weren't alone. Other members of the collective moved through the space, their crystalline forms varying in size and complexity, but all bearing the same geometric writing that shifted and changed. Some regarded the human with obvious curiosity, others with what Thalia had learned to recognize as disdain. "The Council will see you now," announced a smaller crystal being that identified itself as Venantal, Keeper of Protocols. "Though many question the wisdom of allowing human presence in our sacred spaces." Through their mental link, Thalia felt Railkin's reassurance mixed with caution. They'd known this meeting would be challenging, but the discovery of 3 more Void Hunter incursions had forced their hand. They needed the collective's resources, their ancient knowledge. The council chamber was a perfect sphere of shifting crystal, occupied by 9 of the oldest members of the collective. Their forms were massive and intricate, each surface covered in layers of historical records and mathematical proofs that had accumulated over millennia. Railkin, Keeper of Histories, the central figure's mental voice resonated with authority. "You have broken our most sacred laws. Not only did you reveal yourself to a younger species, but you've merged our quantum mathematics with their primitive technology." "Honorable Council," Railkin's response was respectful but firm, "the simulations were clear. The Void Hunters cannot be defeated through isolation. Captain Novik and I have discovered." "We are aware of your discovery," another council member interrupted. "Our own analysis confirms that this hybrid technology is unique, which is precisely why it must be contained, controlled. The human will surrender her neural implants for study and you will submit to memory extraction." Thalia felt her blood run cold, even as her military training kicked in. She catalogued exits, noted the positions of the guard crystals, calculated odds. Through their link, she sensed Railkin doing the same, but with quantum probabilities instead of tactical assessments. "That wasn't the deal," she stated firmly. "We came here for help, not surrender." The council's response was immediate and harsh. Crystal barriers materialized, cutting off their escape routes. "You came here because we allowed it, human. Your kind is not ready for the knowledge you've stumbled upon. The balance must be maintained." What happened next occurred too fast for normal human perception. Railkin's form exploded with light, their shared consciousness accelerating Thalia's neural responses. As guards moved to contain them, Railkin transmitted a dense packet of information directly into her implants. "Run," both spoken and mental command overlapped. "The coordinates are in your mind now, find the forge." Chaos erupted in the council chamber. Railkin engaged the guards, their crystalline form shifting into configurations Thalia had never seen before. Taking advantage of the confusion, she sprinted for the nearest exit, her enhanced reflexes letting her dodge crystalline barriers as they materialized. "Contain the human," the council's command echoed through the archive. "The knowledge must not leave." But Thalia hadn't survived 20 years of military service without learning a few tricks. As crystal beings converged on her position, she activated the experimental modifications she and Railkin had made to her neural implants. The hybrid technology created distortions in local spacetime, nothing as dramatic as their defense against the Void Hunters, but enough to confuse the collective's sensors. She ran through impossible geometries, the archived knowledge blurring around her. The coordinates in her mind burned like fire, a location deep in uncharted space, something called the Stellar Forge. Through their fatting mental link, she felt Railkin's determination, their acceptance of the consequences. An explosion of quantum energy rocked the archive. Thalia stumbled, feeling Railkin's pain through their connection. Her friend had triggered some kind of overload, sacrificing themselves to cover her escape. "I'm not leaving you," she transmitted through their link, even as crystal guards closed in. Railkin's response came weakly. "You must, the forge. It's where my people first learned to shape reality, the Council. They've hidden the truth, the Void Hunters. They're not invaders, they're a response to something we did long ago. The truth hit Thalia like a physical blow. The collective's isolation, their obsession with control, it wasn't just cultural, they were hiding guilt. Ancient guilt. Making a split-second decision, she activated the emergency beacon on the Starweaver. Her crew had orders to execute emergency Protocol Echo 7 if they lost contact, a series of random jumps through space that would make pursuit impossible. "I'll find the forge," she promised, both to Railkin and herself. "I'll finish what we started." The last thing she felt through their mental link was pride, trust, and something deeper, a friendship that transcended species and space itself. Then the connection went silent as crystalline barriers sealed the archive. Thalia ran, the coordinates burning in her mind. Behind her, alarms pulsed through the impossible architecture of the archive. The collective had maintained their isolation for eons, hiding from the consequences of their ancient actions. But they hadn't counted on the persistence of one human captain or the courage of a rebel historian who dared to think differently. As her emergency transport activated, dissolving her physical form into quantum particles, Thalia glimpsed the archive's exterior through gaps in reality, a massive crystalline structure hidden within a dying star. The perfect camouflage, the perfect prison for knowledge too dangerous to share. She materialized on the Starweaver's bridge as klaxons blared. Lieutenant Patel was already executing the escape sequence, the ship's quantum-enhanced engines pushing the boundaries of possible space. "Plot a course," she ordered, pushing aside her grief and guilt. "These coordinates and prepare for company. I doubt the collective will let us go easily." As the Starweaver vanished into quantum space, Thalia allowed herself one moment of silence for her friend. Railkin had sacrificed everything to give her this chance. Now she had to prove worthy of that trust. The coordinates led to something called the Stellar Forge, a place where reality itself could be reshaped. And somewhere out there, the Void Hunters continued their relentless advance, drawn to this dimension by the echoes of an ancient crime. "Hold on, old friend," she whispered to the stars streaming past. "I'm going to find the truth, and then I'm coming back for you." The Starweaver accelerated into darkness, carrying its human crew and their captain toward a destiny that would shake the foundations of multiple universes. The game of secrets and shadows was ending. It was time for truth, no matter the cost. The binary stars of the Heracles cluster cast shifting shadows across the Starweaver's bridge as Captain Thalia Novik faced her unlikely allies. 3 months had passed since her escape from the Nexus Collective's archive, and each day without Railkin felt like a missing piece of her consciousness. "You understand," rumbled Cordeth, the massive silicon-based being who led the outcasts, "that what you propose is madness." His crystalline structure was rougher than the collective's, marked by centuries of surviving in the spaces between civilized worlds. Around the conference table sat representatives from 7 different species, all touched in some way by the Void Hunters, all rejected or hiding from their own peoples. Lieutenant Patel had dubbed them the Broken Stars Alliance, though never to their faces. "Madness is ignoring the truth," Thalia responded, activating the holographic display. The coordinates from Railkin danced in quantum equations that still made her neural implants burn. The Stellar Forge isn't just a weapon or a tool, it's the origin point, where the collective first learned to reshape reality. "And created the tears that drew the hunters," added Naira, a being of pure energy contained within an ancient environmental suit. Her people had been among the first to fall to the Void Hunters' advance, but breaking into a facility that might not even exist anymore. "It exists." Thalia's certainty came from more than just the coordinates burning in her mind. In the months since their separation, she'd felt echoes of Railkin's consciousness, brief flickers of connection that suggested her friend was alive but contained. And the collective's reaction proves its importance. The outcasts exchanged looks of varying anatomical nature. They had all seen the changes in recent months, more Void Hunter incursions, more aggressive responses from the collective. The balance was shifting. "Even if we reach this forge," Cordath's crystalline form pulsed with concern, "the collective will be waiting. They've hunted my people for millennia for far lesser heresies." Thalia allowed herself a grim smile. "That's why we're not going directly to the forge." She nodded to Lieutenant Patel, who activated another hologram, this one showing the archive where Railkin was being held. "We're going to make them come to us." The plan was audacious. combining human military tactics with technologies and abilities from 7 different species. The outcasts had survived by learning to work together, to combine their unique perspectives in ways their parent civilizations never imagined. Over the next week they prepared. The Starweaver's quantum engines were modified with Nyra's energy manipulation techniques. Kordath's people provided crystalline armor that could deflect the collective's quantum mathematics. Other allies contributed their own technologies and knowledge, creating something unprecedented. Through it all, Thalia felt the ghost of Railkin's presence in her mind, guiding her toward understanding she couldn't have achieved alone. The hybrid technology they'd created was more than just a defense against the Void Hunters. It was proof that isolation led to stagnation, that true growth required connection. The attack began at the precise moment when the binary stars aligned, creating a quantum resonance that the outcast scientists had discovered. The Starweaver led a fleet of mismatched vessels, each crewed by beings who had rejected the limitations of their societies. "Remember," Thalia transmitted to the fleet, "this isn't about revenge. We're fighting for a future where knowledge isn't hoarded, where species can grow together." The collective's defenses were formidable, but they hadn't counted on facing technologies combined in ways they'd never imagined. As space itself twisted around them, Thalia felt a surge of familiar consciousness, stronger this time. "Railkin," she sent through their quantum-enhanced link, "we're coming." The response was weak but clear. "The Council, they're moving me to the forge they fear. What we discovered, hurry." The battle that followed would be recorded in 7 different histories, each telling it differently. The Starweaver's crew would remember the impossible maneuvers as their hybrid technologies let them slip through the collective's defenses. The outcasts would tell of how ancient enemies fought side by side, their combined abilities creating something greater than their individual strengths. But for Thalia, it was all background to the growing connection in her mind. As they fought their way through the collective's forces, she felt Railkin's consciousness growing stronger. Their friend was fighting too from within. "The forge coordinates," Railkin's mental voice grew clearer. "They're more than location, they're frequency, resonance, the key to understanding." The message cut off as reality itself seemed to shudder. On the Starweaver's sensors, massive shapes began emerging from between dimensions, void hunters, drawn to the quantum disturbances of battle. "All ships hold position," Thalia commanded, understanding flowing through her enhanced consciousness. Lieutenant Patel prepared to execute Protocol Unity. As allies and enemies alike watched in awe, the Starweaver's hybrid systems began to pulse with impossible energy. The modifications they'd made, the combined knowledge of 8 species including humanity, it was all leading to this moment. The Void Hunters approached, their darkness consuming light and matter. But this time, Thalia knew they weren't the real enemy. They were drawn to the wounds in reality, trying to heal them in their own alien way. Through the chaos of battle, through the quantum mathematics flowing through her neural implants, Thalia felt something else. A signal, a pattern, a truth that had been hidden for too long. The coordinates, she realized, they're not just leading us to the forge, they're showing us how to make it right. As enemy ships closed in and darkness consumed the stars, Thalia made the call that would change everything. "All ships synchronize quantum frequencies. We're not running from the darkness anymore. We're going to learn its dance." The real battle for the future was just beginning, and its outcome would depend not on weapons or defenses, but on the courage to face ancient truths and forge new connections across the barriers of species and space itself. The stellar forge hung suspended in a pocket of manufactured space, its architecture a marriage of crystalline precision and quantum impossibility. Captain Thalia Novik stood at its heart, her neural implants singing with information as reality itself bent around them. Beside her, finally reunited, Railkin's crystalline form pulsed with complex emotions. The collective's prisoner restraints still clung to their surface, but they couldn't diminish the strength of their shared mental connection. "All this time," Thalia whispered, watching as ancient machinery responded to their combined presence. "This is where it began. Where we first learned to reshape reality," Railkin confirmed, their mental voice heavy with ancient guilt. "My people believed we could perfect the universe, eliminate chaos itself. Instead, we created wounds between dimensions." Around them, the battle raged across multiple planes of existence. The outcasts' fleet held off the collective's forces, while void hunters consumed space between them. But here, in this preserved bubble of engineered reality, time moved differently. Show me, Thalia said simply, extending her hand to her friend's crystalline surface. Their consciousness merged more deeply than ever before, enhanced by the Forge's ancient systems. Through Railkin's memories, Thalia saw the truth, how the collective had discovered ways to manipulate the quantum fabric of space itself, believing they could engineer a perfect universe. The Void Hunters weren't invaders, she understood at last. They're antibodies, the universe's own defense against our attempts to change its fundamental nature. Lieutenant Patel's voice crackled through their quantum-enhanced communications. Captain, we can't hold them off much longer. The collective's bringing in reinforcements and the hunters are growing more aggressive. Through their shared consciousness, Thalia and Relkin began to understand the true purpose of the coordinates that had led them here. They weren't just locations in space. They were a key to understanding the quantum harmony of reality itself. Your neural implants, Relkin communicated, their thoughts merging with the Forge's systems. They let you process quantum mathematics instinctively, combined with our crystalline resonance. We can show them, Thalia finished, all of them, the truth they've been fighting against. What followed was neither technology nor magic, but something that transcended both. As Void Hunters pressed against the boundaries of normal space and the collective ships fired quantum weapons, Thalia and Railkin began to sing. It was a song of mathematics and memory, of human neural patterns and crystalline resonance. Through their combined consciousness, enhanced by the Forge's ancient systems, they broadcast understanding across multiple dimensions. To the collective, they showed the futility of perfect control, the beauty in chaos and connection. To the outcasts, they demonstrated the power of unified diversity. And to the Void Hunters, those patient, ancient beings that had been trying to heal reality's wounds, they offered something new: cooperation. The Forge's systems amplified their harmony, carrying it across space and dimensions. Ships stopped firing as their crews were caught in the wave of shared consciousness. Void Hunters paused in their consumption of space, their darkness resonating with new understanding. Look, Thalia commanded, her consciousness expanded beyond normal human limits. Look at what we can create together. Through their combined perception, through the ancient machinery of the Forge, they showed them all a new possibility, not a perfect universe, but one where different species and even different dimensional beings could work together to maintain the delicate balance of reality. The collective's council members, arriving to stop what they saw as heresy, found themselves caught in the harmony. Centuries of isolation and control shattered in the face of undeniable truth. We were wrong, the council's leader transmitted, their crystalline form resonating with the new frequency. All these years, we hoarded knowledge to prevent change when change was exactly what was needed. The Void Hunters, too, began to shift. Their darkness became less consuming, more selective, targeting only the most dangerous tiers in reality while leaving space for controlled quantum manipulation. As the harmony spread, as ancient enemies learned to resonate together, Thalia felt Relkin's consciousness merge even more completely with her own. Their friendship had started with a chance encounter on a dying station, but it had grown into something universe-changing. What happens now? She asked through their shared thoughts. Railkin's response carried hope and possibility. Now we build something new, not perfect, not controlled, but connected. The Forge wasn't meant to reshape reality, it was meant to teach us how to work with it. The Starweaver's crew watched in awe as Void Hunters began working with collective ships to heal spatial tiers. Outcasts and their former persecutors started sharing knowledge, combining technologies in ways that would have been heresy days before. The universe doesn't need perfection, Thalia transmitted to all who could receive. It needs balance, and balance requires all of us working together. As the new harmony spread across space and dimensions, Thalia and Relkin remained at the heart of the Forge, their combined consciousness a bridge between species and realities. They had started as captain and alien, as human and crystal being, but they had become something more, proof that the strongest forces in any universe were understanding, trust, and the courage to reach across the darkness between stars. The Void Hunters would remain, watching and waiting, but now as partners in maintaining cosmic balance rather than mindless destroyers. The collective would open its archives, sharing knowledge with younger species while learning from their fresh perspectives. And the outcasts would become teachers, showing others how to combine different ways of thinking and being. In the end, it wasn't weapons or walls that saved them, but connection, the simple, profound truth that the universe's greatest strength lay not in isolation and control, but in the endless dance of different beings learning to sing together across the stars.